Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to my first jam session. My name is World, and I'm covering CompTia Security Plus, the 701 version. We're studying, this is for a study group. We're about to take the test in 90 days. So we're taking it 90 days over the summer. And this is 2025, May 2025. So we're going to be doing all summer. And this is a group on Teams. So we're at Wake Tech Group from North Carolina. So that's all the information that we're going to give you here. So this is just some information for a jam session. Since this is the first one, there's going to be a lot longer information so that we can explain what's going on and how the sessions are usually run. But usually if you catch a jam session on YouTube or any platform, it's going to be pretty quick, just going over concepts and strategies of stuff that's going to be on the test. So for the most part, we in the group, we have this channel for jam sessions. We have a lab channel where we go in there and we do labs, hands-on labs to help us with performance-based questions. Um, and the goal is to just get a good understanding of some of these concepts so that when we run into these questions that the 701 asks, we understand the question and not just memorize what the answers are from quiz dumps. So, resources before I get into anything, excuse me, that I suggest that you would have for studying for the 701 if you're just starting out now, get yourself a good book. I recommend any book. I'm not going to say any names of authors or anything on this, video. You could just go on Google and find yourself a good 701 book. Same thing with lecture videos. I'm a student, so I'm not a professional, anything regarding cybersecurity. Just want to put that out there. I am a student, and I'm explaining concepts as I understand them. And this is my session. This is how I understand stuff. I'm just putting it out on YouTube. So in case somebody knows more than me and they could get in the comment section and correct me, or if somebody wants to study with me and jump in the group, I'll give you information on how to jump into teams. Um, but with that said, no further ado, let's get into what we got going on in this jam session. Bite-sized study sessions are what they're usually going to be, something around 30 minutes or so. We'll go over concepts from old and new. 601 is when I say old. 601 material and 701 material. 601 because the concepts there are just relevant. Like these attacks don't really change. Like you man in the middle attack, buffer overflow, those are the same attacks. It's not like they change. What might change is the way that they ask the question. Like they might get a little deeper understanding out of you for you to answer the question on the 701 than on the 601. But it's not much of a big difference to where you wouldn't be able to get anything relevant from 601 material. Not to mention, there's a lot more 601 material out there for free now that we could use to study. Um, but I will be getting some 701 material for sure, and I will be posting a lot of the material in the resources tab in the group. Again, if you want to get in the actual group, it's on Teams, and it's just hit me up in the comment section. I'll give you some information on how to get in the actual group. Commonly confused attacks. These are some attacks that I want to go over that a lot of people they don't remember them. They get them confused for whatever reason. They just never got a good understanding of them in the first place, perhaps. Cross-site request forgery versus cross-site scripting. You ever got that confused? This is one of those tools that you don't really know, excuse me, the attack, sorry, that you don't really know how to use, or you just have done lab experience, you never have real hands-on experience, so it never stuck in your mind. This might be one of them. These are web attacks, so when you think about your web attacks, these might come up. So let's get into them. First off, whenever I do a comparison, obviously they're not the same. So let's just get that out the way. These attacks are not the same. Cross-site scripting is a web application vulnerability. Allows attackers to inject scripts into the website or application. The main takeaway from this that I would like you to have is that A cross-site scripting attack exploits the trust a user has for a website or application, and a cross-site request forgery exploits the trust that a web application has for the user accessing the data, right? So your cross-site scripting can send and receive HTTP requests and responses, whereas your cross-site request forgery can only send HTTP requests and they cannot view the response. So the key word in this is HTTP. If you know your protocols, which we will be covering protocols along the summer, HTTP is a web protocol that is not secure. Information that's transferred through HTTP is in plain text. So that's the vulnerability that cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgery exploit. Your cross-site request forgery, they target actions made by authenticated users, where cross-site scripting steals a user's session and access the sensitive data. So that's another thing that you can take away from the difference between the two. And in the cross-site scripting, you're gonna need user engagement. So typically think user engagement is necessary for cross-site scripting. Like you're gonna click a link and execute something in the browser. That would be a cross-site scripting methodology. You're thinking like that, versus a cross-site request forgery. The only thing that really needs is that the user be logged in. Nothing special. They don't have to do anything, no clicking or nothing. Just as long as they're logged in, I could take advantage of that. And that's pretty much the takeaway that I want you guys to have for these two, so that you don't get them confused on test. All right, what we got next? Virus versus worm. Virus and worms is basic security. Any kind of training that you're taking, Security Plus or IC Squared or CyberOps, whatever, they're going to cover virus, worm. You're going to get these, but you should know the main differences because they do not operate the same. Let's get into that. Virus. This I got as a screenshot here from a book that I use for terms and attacks and things from Security Plus. But I don't really like the definition that I have here. But sometimes you get stuff from a book, you can question it. It doesn't mean that it's 100% legit. And sometimes it is correct, and you might just be understanding it wrong. So the thing that doesn't work for me here is the first sentence. It says a virus is a malicious program designed to replicate itself. That may be true, but I don't like saying that about a virus because it gives you the wrong impression that it doesn't require user interaction, which it does. I would like to say replicating itself, self-replication, to go with worm, which we'll get into that in a second. But also here it says viruses are typically attached to legitimate files. That's good, such as documents, installation programs. Not all viruses are designed to do damage. Some can be pranks or humorous. This is all true. And then also, I want you to take away that there are several different types of viruses. There's a whole bunch of different ones, not just one particular kind. You got macro viruses, boot sector viruses, which we will cover in this section here, and then so on and so on. But the main thing here is that they do require user interaction in order for them to start doing anything on your system. Versus worm is just a piece of malware, a program, if you will, that spreads totally on its own with no user interaction. They don't have to be malicious inherently. They're not. But they do consume a bunch of resources when they start spreading across your computer, taking up bandwidth, which can cause denial of service. So that's the thing you have to worry about here with worm. So again, some stuff to take away. Virus requires a host file or some kind of a program to attach to. It has to be activated by the user, where worms are standalone programs that can self-replicate and spread across the network. They don't really need the human interaction. That's the main thing. The human interaction is necessary for the virus. It's not for the worm. Also, I want you to know how these things get on your computer. Like how do you get a virus or worm on the computer? There are some similarities in that. that some people might get confused. With viruses, you're thinking of email attachments, infected downloads, removable media, file sharing, a malicious link or something like that. With worm, it's more the network vulnerability we're thinking about. Email, spam can do it, unpatched software, but you could also get a worm from a malicious link as well. So just keep that in mind. Rainbow table attack versus dictionary attack. These are pretty much our password attacks. Now, very important that you know your password attacks for the simple fact that if you are a penetration tester or if you're going to try to secure a system, most systems are secured with a password. So when a hacker wants to get access, unauthorized access to a system, they have to get through that first level of security, which usually is the password. So they will have to breach that in some kind of way. So these are two ways that can be done. One is more easy to pull off, but it does take a longer time. One does have more effectiveness, but it is harder to set up. So let's get into that. Not the same. Again, very different actually, but there are some differences that can confuse you. So I want to get a little bit deeper into this than the other things. With a rainbow table, we're looking at a table. Table is a list, if you will, of pre-assembled hashes and plain text passwords, right? So I have plain text passwords and their hashes, and it's all in a list. Okay, think like that. And they're effective for like a smaller length character field, the varchar, if you will, 16 character, like a credit card or something like that. It works very good with that. Once you get larger numbers and things like password phrases, it doesn't really work well for that. The functionality goes away. Where a dictionary attack is a brute force attack, but you have a dictionary list, which is a full book, damn near, of words that are relevant to, per se, a field or a program or whatever. It's not just like you go to Webster's dictionary, it's not that. But these are relevant words that could be the password to something that you're trying to breach. But the problem with a brute force attack is that you're going to try every single one of those passwords in your list, one by one by one by one, until possibly you crack it. If you have 1,000 passwords in the list, you're going to try every single 1,000 of those passwords. They might try every letter combination: A, B, A, B, A, B, C, A, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a million billion things that they can try that could possibly be a password. So it takes a long time. It's not that effective, especially if you don't have the appropriate password in the dictionary that you're using. So this is something that both of them are both of them are password related. The dictionary uses a list that is generated from words that you think might be in there. A rainbow table has a list of pre-generated hashes and plain text passwords. That's the key difference here. It's going to be faster because all it has to do is pair up the actual password with its appropriate hash. So that's not like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. It has an actual password in there. It has a hash of the password. And once it finds the hash that matches the password, that's what it can use to, crack whatever system that you're looking at. Uh, so rainbow tables are going to be your more effective. The problem is they rely on you having that table with the pre-generated hashes and the passwords that go along with it. That's not easy to get. So that's the problem there. Bluetooth attacks. When I first started learning cybersecurity, I want to say a while back, I took this Google certified in cybersecurity program, and it was pretty good. They had a lot of Bluetooth information on there. It was kind of confusing for the simple fact that I was brand new to it, and for somebody who doesn't understand the Bluetooth protocol, um, a lot of the Bluetooth attacks pretty much just sound the same, so they don't really make too much sense. Uh, just know that these two, blue snarfing and blue jacking, are two dangerous ones that you want to be aware of. So let's get into the differences that they have. Not the same, but very dangerous. One of them is more annoying than anything else. It's not like it's going to do too much damage, but it is a violation of your privacy. So the vulnerability here is the Bluetooth. So the Bluetooth, when you leave it on, the Bluetooth protocol, it has profiles on there, depending on if it's sniffing or if it's in discoverable mode, depending. A lot of people don't know that people who have Bluetooth tools can turn your device into discoverable mode and then attach to your device. And with this blue jacking, you can send random messages and pictures and files to people's device as they get into the vicinity of your tool. So that's not really the most dangerous thing, because it doesn't take information off of your phone. It puts information onto it, but that's unwanted information on your phone. So that's blue jacking. Blue snarfing, on the other hand, is very, very dangerous, because when you're in the vicinity of these people who have the tool, they can actually steal data from your device. They can take information off your phone, pictures, files, contacts, videos even. So that's a very dangerous thing. Both of these can be counteracted by simply turning your Bluetooth off. I know that's difficult for some people because they use Bluetooth. It's convenient, and that's the thing. A lot of things that are convenient are not safe. It's a big trade-off with convenience. Bluetooth, you have your Bluetooth headphones, you have your Bluetooth keyboard and things that, connect to the phone. But then just know that blue jacking and blue snarfing are out there, and they're real dangers that you have to be aware of. Don't forget these attacks. These attacks, they're out there. They are going to come up on every single test that pertains to security, guaranteed. So let's just jump into those. What's the first one? Buffer overflow attack. Buffer overflow attack is a memory attack. I don't think that the average person that's studying Security Plus, or who has an interest in Security Plus, is going to have experience with an actual overflow attack, like actually performing it successfully, because it's one of those more sophisticated attacks. So all you need to really know about it is it's an overflow of a memory register. If you notice on the screen, we have a 8-byte memory register in a buffer. If I try to put more than that in there, it'll overflow and it'll leak into another register, and that could cause a corrupted file, that can cause crashing in the system. There's other memory attacks to be aware of. But the main thing that you got to understand is that they interact with the memory of the system. On the level that you have to get to work with the memory of the system, um, a programming language like C is what you're going to have to use. So most people uh, don't program with C to be writing scripts that's going to have any issue with buffer overflow. The most common sexy languages that people want to learn are Python and Java. So those aren't inherently vulnerable to buffer overflow. So Security Plus probably just wants you to have a high level knowledge of what they are, and then also what other kind of memory attacks they can have. The one that I like to point out the most, they all cause like system crashes and denial of service, but I like to point out the pointer dereference one a lot, because for some reason people don't understand what that does, because it doesn't sound easily understandable, I guess, but it's pretty easy to get when you think of it like I know there's going to be some smarter people than me. I get that. And they're going to be in the comments probably like, that's not exactly how that works. And I get that. What I'm explaining right now is not exactly how this works, but it's a good way to explain to people who don't understand this, so that they can understand what it means. You see what I'm saying? What it means is a better thing for you to get out of this as a takeaway. So let's think of it as a shortcut on your desktop. When you download a program and they ask you, would you like a shortcut to go on the desktop? That shortcut is not the actual program, so you can't like run it from there. You double click it and it opens, right? But in the background, it's actually pointing to the actual program that's in another location, right? So that pointer is what the element is here. Pointer dereference. If the hacker dereferences the pointer, right, the location where the actual program's supposed to be, let's say you want to run PowerShell, right? So you double click it. If I took PowerShell out of the location where it's stored, where the pointer, where the desktop shortcut is pointing to, it won't have a way to open PowerShell, right? It will be pointing to an empty, because when they do pointer dereference, they point it to what's called a null byte. Now, null byte is like a reference that's pointing to nothing. There's no information in there. So what that causes is a denial of service, because now when I want PowerShell to open up, because I'm double clicking on the shortcut, it can't, because now the reference pointer doesn't point to PowerShell anymore. It got pointed somewhere else. So that's a hack that, is a memory issue too, because the memory location where PowerShell is supposed to be doesn't have it anymore. So you'll get a denial of service trying to locate that. Boot sector virus is another virus as well. It infects all drives on your computer. Very bad, very bad. But we're not going to get too deep into it in one of these jam sessions. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink of water. I'm back. Thirsty. Oh, now when I say we're not going to get into that in a jam session, because this the time and place for everything. Like I said earlier, this is a whole group. You guys are just watching a jam session video, but if you were in the group, there's other channels in the group, and one of our channels is the lab. So we get in there and we actually do labs where we can get into boot sector viruses, how to infect a system with these type of virus and root and backdoors and all those things. And we'll do that all summer to get us familiar on a very, very intricate level on how to run some of these attacks and just the methodology of a hacker mindset. Macro virus. Macro virus, I'm going to just be straight up honest with you right now. I don't have no experience. I've never done any kind of malicious intended hack, fraud, or anything like that with macro virus. This is just something that will probably be covered on the test. It might come up in one of the multiple choice questions, and you want to just be able to have a general knowledge of it so that you could use process of elimination strategy possibly to get that question right. So we could read here what it is. Macro virus is a type of computer exploit or malware automatically triggers a series of software functions, often with a deleterious effect. That's some old deleterious, malicious, we will say. In addition to wreaking havoc on the system, macroviruses are programmed to replicate and spread themselves in order to infect other systems with user interaction. Let's remember that because it is a virus. And macroviruses most often spread alone via phony web links. So this might be one of those web viruses that you catch clicking on links on random websites, right? So this is something to just know. It's a web virus. You probably click it on some nasty infected website that you visit, and it interacts with software. Those are things you can take away from macrovirus. Man in the middle. I like man in the middle attacks. They are one of the number one attacks that I can pull off because I understand them fully. Now, before we even get into man in the middle attack, you see on path attacks. I don't ever want you guys to get confused when you see that on a test, because they will definitely have on path attack on there like it's its own attack, like it's something that is some special shit. But it's not. It's a man in the middle attack. An on path attack is a man in the middle attack. You're on the same communication path as the victim. You're in the middle. So when you're thinking about these type of attacks, you're probably thinking about sniffing traffic, right? So you have to use your sniffing tools, whatever sniffing tool you're aware of. If you come into more jam sessions, we're going to cover a bunch of tools that you can use. But if you understand the concept of man in the middle, then these attacks that I'm about to mention should be familiar to you because these all fall under the same category as man in the middle. Rogue access point, HTTPS spoofing, any kind of spoofing, any DNS, ARP, all those kind of spoofing attacks, those are man in the middle attacks. You have to be in the middle of traffic to spoof and snatch cookies and snatch packets and manipulate. Um, Email hijacking, SSL stripping. SSL stripping is pretty much you take the HTTPS and you force that HTTPS, strip it down to HTTP. Remember we said earlier, HTTP is clear text. You can see everything, plain text. So the stripping strips it down to force it to use a less secure protocol. And that's what SSL stripping is. But you got to be sniffing and getting packets, and that's man in the middle. So we will go over a bunch of man-in-the-middle attacks because, like I just said here, they come in different forms. I don't want you to get confused when they say DNS spoofing and you're thinking, oh, what is DNS spoofing? It's a man-in-the-middle attack. You think man-in-the-middle attack, you understand the concept. They'll be easier to understand and a lot easier to do your process of elimination on these tests. Back to some password attacks. You're gonna know password attacks are gonna come up a lot. It's just you can't avoid it when you're dealing with security. A lot of these devices are protected by password. But just know that a password is not a plain text deal. That's not what we're dealing with here. Unless, of course, I give this example a lot because some people they don't understand how computers work and how they store passwords or anything like that. If you decide that you want to make your own password stash, right? And you open up Notepad and you put your password in there and you say, you list all your devices and you say, what's the password for it? This is the password for my phone. This is the password to Instagram, Facebook, all my passwords. And I put them in my Notepad and I save it password.txt and I put it on my desktop, right? Not you. I've seen this, dude. I'm telling you, people they don't think that anybody's gonna hack them. That's why they do stupid shit like that. So you put that on your desktop. Now that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that because that would be plain text. If I got onto your system and I'm on your desktop and I'm rummaging through your files and I see that, I'm gonna get the keys to the castle because you put that there. So that would be the vulnerability of user error, right? That would be the user was vulnerable there. They put those keys to their car on the dashboard and left, right? But we're not talking about that. We're talking about like if you got a computer and you set up a user and that user has a password and that password is stored in the SAM registry somewhere. That SAM registry, if a hacker wants to get in there and snatch that, they're not going to get a plain text password in there. What they're going to get in there is a hash, right? A hash is going to provide integrity, blah, blah, blah. You know what a hash is. But a hash, MD5, SHA-256, is going to be a blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're looking at it, it's not going to be human readable form. It's going to be some wild looking encrypted stuff, right? So that is actually what you use when you authenticate on websites, to be honest. Like if you're trying to log on to Facebook or Amazon or whatever you're logging on to, you type in your username, you type in your password, you don't see the password when you're typing in, right? So if you did that for the first time, they stored your session and it has a cookie, so now you have an authentication cookie that the server stores. So now every time you try to authenticate back on some of these sites, they just let you right in the door, right? You just go on there. You notice sometimes you just log on. For me, it's Udemy and it's Cybrary and these the sites that I always get on. I'll just log on and boop, or some of them just send me a password on the email, all different ways. But past the hash, this is like an authentication attack with the password. So if I'm a man in the middle again, sniffing a session and I manage to steal an authentication cookie, and in that authentication cookie is a password hash, yeah, I can't see what the password is, but I could take that hash and pass it along to an authentication server, and the authentication server doesn't know that it's me, that it's not you. They don't know who I am. All they know is that they have a copy of my hash or yours, excuse me, on their server stored in the database. And when I'm trying to authenticate with your password hash, it matches what they have on their system. So they say, okay, let me in, right? They thought it was you because you should be the only one who has this. Technically, you are, but I stole the password hash and passed it on to the server. So that's how I can authenticate myself. So that's what the password hash is. If you want to see this attack pulled off, we're going to do this lab straight up. This is one of the required labs for my group. Some of the labs in there are mandatory. We have to get them done because they're just so crucial to the understanding of concepts that there's no way we're going to let them take this test without doing these labs. So if you want to get into this group, so you're going to do mandatory labs, just let me know. Like I said, jump in the comments and let me know, hey, I want access to that group, dude, and I'll get you in. Trojan attacks. Trojan attacks are funny because when you try to download stuff that you think is, let's say, it happens a lot in the App Store, right? We think about a phone. You download an app from the App Store and you have all these permissions that you accept because you didn't read the permissions. It's like 5 pages of permissions, right? So or your TikTok, your little TikTok app. Remember when it was gone and you thought it was the end of the world and you download the red box app, whatever, red note app. You can't read Chinese. You don't know what permissions but you want the TikTok book, right? So now you have it. So that's a perfect example of how you could have downloaded a Trojan because you wanted something, right? So a lot of people want things, so they download them, and when they download them, they use them. It seemingly is nothing wrong with it because they do get use out of it. You do get to use the app. You can record videos and make your content and all as well because you think you're getting what you want. But in the background, there's a hack in there because there's a malicious file or some kind of a worm or some kind of a virus that now is active on your system because you let it in the front door because you downloaded the app and you interacted with the app. You actually used it. So you clicked on everything. So now everything that you clicked on, who knows? It could have been the payload that was downloaded, and it can be whatever. It could be a joke. It could Rick roll you. You remember that little you click on a video on YouTube and Rick, what's his name? Rick Ross. I don't even know the dude's name. Rick Astley. He'll come out. I'm never gonna give you up. That used to be a thing back in the day. So that could have been the hack, something stupid like that. But the hack that I'm talking about here, the one that's the juicy one, is the remote access Trojan, right? Because the remote access Trojan is the same thing that we just spoke about. You think you're downloading something useful, you interact with it, is all well and good, you have a nice little app. But now the malicious aspect of it is that you open up a serious problem because remote access means access from a remote location, right? I'm nowhere near you actually. I'm wherever I am, like where I am right now. You don't know where I'm at. Imagine me right now from what I'm doing, looking around in your phone, looking on your computer in all your files. Imagine, right? Because you clicked on something, right? That's pretty much the mindset there. And remote access usually is persistent, meaning that I can maintain that session. I can click off the session and turn the session back on and click it off and start new session on your computer whenever I want now. It can be like that depending on how the command and control functionality works. So again, don't get scared because most people don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know how to do none of this shit. But these groups like this, they're real. Like we are in here doing this stuff, and we're gonna leave here and go start learning how to hack. And we're not on Hackbox and we're not on Try Hack Me and none of that. We're on home labs that we create on VMs. Put Kali Linux and Parrot and Ubuntu and Windows Server and damn vulnerable web application and all these things so that we could really get it in on Burp Suite and Port Swigger. Yeah, so for real, that's how we do. WPS attack. WPS attacks is web applications. You have your Wi-Fi protected setup. Excuse me, not web application. I was looking at something else. This is a Wi-Fi. So the thing about this is that it's vulnerable to brute force attacks because it's not secure. Brute force attacks are easy to run on WPS because, excuse me, brute force attacks are easy to run on WPS because of the inherent vulnerability that it has with the encryption. So if you have Wi-Fi and it's on WPS, definitely don't want to be using that. You want to use something more secure like WPA2 or even WPA3 on your Wi-Fi. Ways to mitigate this, if you can, like if you can get access to your settings. Most people, if it's on like a phone or a router, they don't really know how to access the setting. But if you can get online and access the settings, you can enable MAC filtering. Something like a MAC address is a hardware device address. So if you could filter that and make sure that only devices that you know are on your Wi-Fi network, that's some way that you can mitigate against this. Sometimes you can see who's on your Wi-Fi if you check on your phone and look at the Wi-Fi, how many devices are on it, and you can see which are the devices. If you don't recognize devices on there, kick them off. Make sure that you put a filter for those devices. You can search for their MAC address and block them, right? Those are ways that you could mitigate against this. Sorry for this. I have a little distraction going on. I have a dog, and he's in my way. I love this little guy, so I want to pay some attention to him. But I'm paying attention to you guys, and I'm trying to pay attention to my little guy over here. Sorry. Another attack here, WEP attack. WEP, I'll be honest with you, I don't have much experience with this one here. What I do know about it though is initialization vector is the more important thing here, and it works with a stream cipher called RC4, and WEP is not secure. The initialization vector that it uses is to encrypt data packets. So the data packets, since they're large, and the initialization vector that WEP uses is not large as far as what the encryption value is fairly small, you get different initialization vectors, but they start to replicate themselves in the packets. So when you have somebody that's sniffing these packets and they start to see which initialization vectors are the same, then they can use statistical analysis, which is the attack that they'll use, because now they can see, okay, this initialization vector is the same as this one, which is a crash, I'll call it, because they're the same. And they can use that to kind of delineate what the plain text is in the packet. I have no idea how they do this because, again, this is nothing that I have experience with. I don't want to come across as somebody that's trying to explain something that I don't know. The explanation that you got was the best I can give you. However, this is nothing that you can't look up on your own, and I definitely suggest that you do. But trust me, for the 701, the explanation that I gave you, that half-ass shit, that'll be more than enough to get you through. It is a attack that the vulnerability there is the RC4 and the WEP. That's the vulnerability there. And pretty much the WEP is a 24-bit initialization vector, and RC4 encryption for the packets. Statistical analysis is the hack that they will use to decipher the packet. Those are the keywords that you would need. Logic bomb. This one I have a lot of experience with because this is an easy one. I am a programmer, and a logic bomb would not be performed by anyone who doesn't understand programming because there's logic behind this. This is a hack, a malicious code that will deploy under certain conditions, under a certain time, or under a certain element. So let's say, for instance, an example that I like to give, which is very far-fetched, somebody on the IT department plants a logic bomb so that if they ever get fired, their offboarding process, that process means that they're legit getting fired. So that offboarding process, the paperwork or anything that has to be filed for that, once the files start going into the system, those files will turn on the logic bomb, and the logic bomb will destroy the files of the whole computer system. Everything will be crashing, and that will be the hack that the IT, like their FU to the company for firing them. Um, I've heard that's happened before. I seriously doubt anybody is malicious enough to craft some nonsense like that as a logic bomb, because who knows when they're gonna get fired. By the time they get fired, if nobody discovers that shit, like, come on, dude. I think stuff like that. So, but I just give that example because it's ridiculous. And if you can think of something and you remember it as being totally ridiculous, you usually remember it. So that's all I want you to do as a takeaway. A logic bomb is something that is set up for a future deployment, and a certain condition has to be met for it to be deployed. And once it's deployed, boom, it'll just go off. Now, the funny thing about it is, like I said before, a programmer has to do this. So if a programmer does not do this, let's say like you know what a script kiddie is, you should, because it's going to be covered on the test. Script kiddie is somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing, but they might find a malicious code online or in a forum somewhere, and they want to try to use it. It might be a logic bomb. So since they're not a programmer, they don't know what it is. They have no idea what the parameters are, what the variables are. It, the loop, anything in it. They don't know anything about it because they can't read code. So they'll try to deploy it and it won't work ever because they don't know how to set the timer. The timer has to be set. They never set the damn thing, so so they just deploy it and it just sit there forever and it never works. So these things, they have to be programmed, they have to be set. You have to know a little bit about what you're doing, but the key is just know that they have some condition has to be met in order for them to work. Um, This I'm ending off the session with this broken key. It signifies weak encryption, and that is a very serious vulnerability um, with cybersecurity in general. The problem with this is that it's my weakest subject. I kid you not. I do not wrap my head around encryption very well and cryptography for whatever reason. However, I'm going to be spending a lot of time this summer at this so that I will definitely be expert at it by the time I take the test. But for right now, I just left this as the last slide just in case you got any idea that I was an expert at anything. I just wanted to show you that I am not. I'm not this expert dude. I'm just a guy studying hard to pass this test. Me explaining these concepts to random people on the internet, because I know the internet is a very brutal place. I know people are going to kill me in the comments telling me I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm a total loser and I'm an idiot and all this crap. I get it. I have a very tough skin. I don't give a damn about any of that. I'm just actually looking for professionals, people who actually know more than I do, to probably jump in the comments and correct me wherever I'm wrong, to just guide me in the right direction. I definitely understand most of the stuff that I'm coming at you with. Trust me, there's nothing you can tell me about half the stuff that I don't know 100%. I'm very knowledgeable. I'm just not an expert. Like, for instance, encryption, totally my weak point. AES, RSA, RIVES. Off of this, I know PGP, pretty good privacy, honestly, because I do a lot of phishing email hacking and stuff like that. So PGP privacy is an encrypted way to craft emails. That's why I know that. ECC, elliptic curve cryptography, I do a lot of mobile phone foolery. So that's encryption that mobile phones have a lot. I know that because of experience. DE, what the hell? My slide went away.